That's why everything is taxed, and that's why everything is built on legal contracts and a fraudulent legal system because they want you to agree to it, and everything is taxed because they're all participating in a global fraud, a global deception. They want you to feel like you are lost in space, separated from my father, quadrillions and quadrillions of light years separated. You know how long 1 trillion seconds is? If we counted to 1 trillion seconds, it would take us 31.6 thousand years. Wake me up after the longest nap I've ever taken in my life, and then tell me you still got to do it 25 more times. Why did you wake me up? And then expect me to believe and remember whatever the hell you were talking about when you left. No. That's why everything's so expensive in this world. It's built off of fraud. They're literally using us as chattel for their stock market, which holds no value. Since the Federal Reserve was created, the stock market doesn't mean shit. I pray that the stock market puts its money where its mouth is worth, where its money is, where, how you call it? What is that? Put your money where your mouth is because your stock market is very fraudulent. Or maybe that's why the stock market still exists because they're going to make it right. I'm not sure. But to me, that's why everything is so expensive because NASA's budget for committing fraud is more than $60 million a day. But what they report to the IRS is way less. That's why they're being audited and they're putting all their money back into the land and creating sustainable farming, regenerative farming, more nutrient dense crops with Mother Nature, not through synthetic fabrication and synthetic mimicry. You know? That's the reason everything is so expensive in this world. That's the reason. Once we return back to the truth of our realm and how God created it, then everything will make sense for you. You'll go to school. Actually, they'll ask you to come to school because of how smart you are and not tell you that you have a scholarship. You know what I mean? Scholarships will be given out to people who deserve them, but like they're going to be seeking out people who they really need. Scholarships will be given out, and then people who want to pay for school, they're going to pay for it and they're going to get licensed and certified and degrees that actually mean something where they can continue in their career. Because just having a scholarship and going to school, I dropped out of college because I had a scholarship and I was learning all the legal policies. And we're not going to get too far deep into it, but it was making me sick learning about legal policies when I was supposed to be a doctor for nutrition, you know? So I dropped out and I'm trying to learn as much natural medicine. I don't live a perfect holistic life, you know? I'm still working on that. So this is time for everyone to learn. That's why everything's so expensive though, because we haven't reclaimed the stolen fiction of God's creation, the violations of creation. We haven't reclaimed them yet. And NASA and all the people are participating in this legal and fraudulent tax system and fraudulent digital currencies that are created on computers and AI generated and hyperinflation and all kinds of stuff. Bribery, laundering, stealing, hyper loaning. When you loan someone something that you know they're never going to pay you back. What is that called? Fraud. But anyway, that's why everything's so expensive. And I'm pretty sure this is the year. I think actually, technically, this is year 6,000 on the dot. And, or not on the dot, but 2026 is the year 6,000 since whatever. I've heard it a few times in it. I don't know. If you look at the people who actually kept time were supposed to be 6,000 years into the real timeline. this is supposed to be like a refresh year, like year of jubilee, year of debt elimination, like all that stuff. But we'll see. You know what I mean? It would be great, especially for the people who are struggling and deserve it. Like, why not? But the reason that everything's expensive and the reason that everything's cheap and fake and plastic is because they want you to spend more money on living a comfortable lifestyle. You know what I mean? They want you to be happy with broken and falsely and misinterpreted things. You know what I mean? I'm going to fix this for you, but I'm actually not fixing it for you. I'm just going to break it just enough so you got to keep calling me back. That's not the way it's supposed to be. That's why everything is so expensive. And you got to look at every piece of paper that you ever signed in your life, because that's you. You didn't know it. So in a lawful court, you didn't know the obligations and the terms of a contract. You could do that, but I'm not talking about terrorists or killing people who actually have victims who that no, I'm talking about like in a fraudulent court when someone's trying to commit fraud against you and trying to get you to agree to a lesser form of fraud so that way that you can both participate in a fraudulent court. That's when you say, "Hey, I never read the contract fully. I didn't understand the contract. We were never in contract. I'm not your property," you know? That's why everything's so expensive. That's the title of this video. I probably said it maybe 7, 8 times. That's why everything's so expensive. We need to audit NASA, and we need to put all that money back into fixing Terra Centrale, the center of Terra, and then fixing our relations with outer Terra, extra Terra. So we fix Central Terra, and then we can fix the relation with outer Terra. But I don't know if there is a relation. We got to talk to God first, because that's why we're separated, and that's why there's a firmament. And I already told you, we will never penetrate the firmament. But that's why everything's so expensive. Have a wonderful day.